The glowing digital numbers on my microwave read exactly 6:47 a.m. on a bleak Tuesday morning. I was already awake, clutching my second mug of black coffee, watching the relentless wind whip the heavy snow against the glass of my Chicago apartment window. It was a gray, biting morning, the kind of cold that settles deep in your bones and refuses to leave. When the phone call came, shattering the kitchen silence, the screen flashed a name I hadn't seen in 3 weeks. Marcus. My brother. My stomach tightened instinctively. We hadn't spoken since our last tense argument in the sterile hallway of the nursing home where our mother lived. I swiped answer, bracing myself for conflict, but not for this. Arthur. His voice was heavy, dripping with a performance of sorrow that instantly made the hair on my arms stand up. It sounded rehearsed. I have difficult news. Mom passed away last night, peacefully in her sleep. I froze. The ceramic mug rattled as I set it down on the granite counter, my hands suddenly losing their strength. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? When? I was just planning to drive out there today. The funeral is Friday, Marcus interrupted, his tone snapping from mournful to sharp, like a steel trap closing. He didn't let me process the grief. I've handled all the arrangements. Then, without a pause for breath, his voice dropped to a cold, businesslike register that chilled me more than the blizzard outside. And Arthur, regarding the will, the documents are ironclad. Everything goes to me. The house, the cottage in Lake Geneva, the entire inheritance, it all comes to me. You get nothing, Don't even think about wasting your money trying to contest it. Click. The line went dead. I stood there, the silence of the kitchen deafening, staring at the black screen of my phone in total disbelief. My mother was gone, just like that. And in the first 60 seconds of this tragedy, Marcus's priority wasn't to comfort his only sibling. It was to secure the assets. This wasn't grief talking. This was pure, unadulterated greed. Let me back up a bit to make sense of this madness. My name is Arthur Vance. I'm 64 years old, a retired structural engineer who spent 4 decades calculating load-bearing capacities for bridges across the Midwest. I know how things hold together, and I know exactly when they're about to snap under pressure. My wife, Sarah, lost her battle with ovarian cancer 3 years ago. Since then, my world has revolved around my daughter, Sophie, now a marine biologist out in Seattle, and staying close to Mom. She had been my anchor while I navigated the stormy seas of grief. Then there's my brother, Marcus. He's 4 years younger, 58, but acts like he's perpetually trying to prove something to a crowd that isn't watching. We grew up close enough, shoveling snow off the driveway of our old house in the suburbs, playing catch until the streetlights came on. But as adults, we drifted into different orbits. Marcus became a real estate agent, married Linda, and had 2 kids. On social media, his life looked like a luxury magazine, spread shiny leased cars, vacations in Cabo, expensive suits. But I saw the cracks in the foundation. Marcus was always leveraging one property to buy another, robbing Peter to pay Paul. There were hushed, tense arguments at Thanksgiving dinners about maxed-out credit cards and investments that evaporated into thin air. Our mother, Eleanor Vance, was 85 and sharp as a tack. A retired high school literature teacher, she could quote Hemingway from memory and beat me at chess without breaking a sweat. She lived independently in her bungalow in Evanston until about 9 months ago. That's when Marcus started his campaign. He convinced her she was slowing down and needed help managing the utility bills and medical appointments. He suggested he become her power of attorney, just for administrative ease. Mom was hesitant. She valued her independence like gold, but Marcus was persuasive. He was the charming salesman, after all. That's when the ground shifted beneath our feet. Within weeks of Marcus securing control over her estate, Mom was suddenly diagnosed with aggressive, rapid-onset dementia. Marcus moved her into Oakwood Haven, a high-end nursing home, on the outskirts of the city, claiming she was a danger to herself. When I visited, I was horrified. My witty, vibrant mother was slumped in a wheelchair, staring blankly at a muted television. She didn't know me. Her speech was a garbled salad of words. "Is this really possible?" I had asked her physician, Dr. Lawrence Hale. She was discussing politics with me 2 months ago. "Cognitive decline can be precipitous at this age," Dr. Hale had said, his voice smooth as silk. "It's tragic, but not uncommon." But it didn't sit right. It felt like a bridge with a fatal structural flaw hidden under a fresh coat of paint. I visited Mom 3 times a week regardless. Even when she looked through me like I was glass, I'd hold her hand, tell her about Sophie, about the volunteer work I was doing at the local food pantry. Marcus visited too, but his visits were flybys, always checking his Rolex, always impatient. Standing in my kitchen now, realizing the depth of his greed, the pieces finally clicked into place. This wasn't nature taking its course. This was a controlled demolition of my mother's life. With the echo of Marcus's threat still vibrating in the air, a cold realization washed over me. This wasn't just a family dispute. It was a crime in progress. I didn't waste a second mourning. I dialed the number for Oakwood Haven immediately, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Oakwood Haven, front desk." A cheerful voice answered after 2 rings, completely at odds with the storm raging inside me. "I'm calling about my mother, Eleanor Vance," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though I felt like I was standing on a crumbling ledge. I just received a phone call stating she passed away last night." There was a pause, the sound of keys clicking on a keyboard. "One moment, Mr. Vance. That doesn't seem right. I don't see any flags on her file." The silence that followed stretched for an eternity. I stared out at the swirling snow, holding my breath. "Mr. Vance?" The receptionist came back on the line, sounding perplexed. "I just checked with the floor nurse. Your mother is fine. She's in the dining room having her oatmeal right now. Is there some confusion?" The relief hit me so hard I almost dropped the phone, followed instantly by a surge of white-hot adrenaline. She's alive?" "Yes, sir. Very much so." I sank onto a kitchen stool, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. "Can you do me a huge favor? Do not tell anyone I called, especially not my brother. Please, this is vital." "Okay, Mr. Vance?" She sounded confused, but she agreed. I hung up and immediately dialed my daughter in Seattle. Sophie answered on the 3rd ring, sounding groggy. It was 2 hours earlier on the West Coast. "Dad? Everything okay?" "Sophie, listen to me. Your uncle just told me Grandma died last night. He told me the will leaves everything to him and that the funeral is Friday." "Oh my God, Dad. I'm so sorry." "No, Sophie. You don't understand," I cut in, my voice trembling with rage. "She didn't die. I just called the nursing home. She's eating breakfast. She is alive." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Wait, what? He lied about her death?" "He's trying to steal the estate, Sophie. He thinks if he holds a funeral and pushes the paperwork through while we're all grieving, he can liquidate her assets before anyone asks questions." "Dad," Sophie's voice sharpened, her scientific mind analyzing the data. "That's not just lying. That's elder abuse. That's criminal fraud. He's counting on you being too broken to check. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I admitted, looking at the calendar on the wall. "But I have to figure it out fast. He said the funeral is Friday. That gives me less than 3 days to stop him." After hanging up with Sophie, I didn't pace the floor or collapse in grief. I went into crisis management mode, the same way I used to handle a structural failure on a job site. First, I contacted David Katz, a lawyer I'd worked with years ago on a complicated construction contract dispute. He was a bulldog in court, exactly what I needed. I explained the situation, my voice low and urgent. "Arthur, this is incredibly serious," David said, his tone grave. "If your brother has power of attorney and is misrepresenting your mother's condition to the authorities or financial institutions, we are talking about heavy criminal charges. But allegations aren't enough. You need evidence. Solid, undeniable proof that can stand up in front of a judge. Next, I hired a private investigator, Jessica Cole. She arrived at my apartment that afternoon, shaking the snow off her coat. She was a sharp woman in her mid-40s, with streaks of gray in her dark hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She sat at my kitchen table, taking notes with a precise hand. "How long has your brother held the POA?" she asked, not looking up. 9 months, I replied. Right after Mom supposedly developed this severe dementia. Before that, she was completely competent. She was volunteering at the public library, playing bridge twice a week. Then, overnight, she couldn't remember her own zip code. Jessica stopped writing and looked at me. "I've seen cases like this before, unfortunately. Sudden onset like that is suspicious. Give me 48 hours. I'll dig into the financials and find out exactly what's happening with your mother's accounts." That evening, unable to sit still, I drove out to Oakwood Haven. I didn't call ahead. I needed to see her with my own eyes. When I arrived at Mom's room, she was sitting in her usual high-backed chair by the window, staring out at the darkening winter sky. Her gray hair was thinner than I remembered, her face more lined with fatigue. But something about her posture seemed different tonight, less slumped, less medicated. "Mom?" I said softly, pulling a plastic chair up beside her. She turned her head slowly. Those familiar brown eyes met mine. Usually, they were clouded, vacant pools that looked right through me. But tonight, there was a spark. A flicker of recognition? Or was I just projecting my own desperate hope? "It's me, Arthur. Your son." She blinked, her mouth working silently as if she were trying to form a word, to bridge the gap between us. For a split second, I saw her, the real Eleanor, fight to surface. But then the door swung open, and a nurse bustled in to check her vitals. The connection snapped. Mom's eyes drifted away, losing focus, returning to the void. I drove home through the blinding snow, my mind racing faster than the windshield wipers. What was Marcus's endgame? A fake funeral to convince the world she was dead? Then what? Transfer all her assets while everyone thought she was gone? It was insane. It was also, I was realizing with a sick feeling in my stomach, potentially brilliant in its audacity. Jessica called me the next morning while I was forcing down a piece of dry toast. "Arthur, you need to sit down." Her voice was tight. I sat at my kitchen table, pressing the phone hard against my ear. "Tell me." "Your brother has been very busy," she said. "In the past 8 months, he's transferred approximately $450,000 from your mother's investment accounts into his own personal LLC. He sold her lake house in Lake Geneva to a shell company last week. I'm still tracing the paperwork, but I suspect he's the beneficiary. He's been bleeding her dry." My hand gripped the edge of the table. Almost $500,000. "And Arthur," Jessica continued, "the doctor who diagnosed your mother's dementia, Dr. Lawrence Hale, he went to university with Marcus. They were fraternity brothers. They've been friends for 30 years. I felt bile rise in my throat. "So, Mom's dementia, it could be medication-induced? If she's being overprescribed sedatives or antipsychotics, it would explain the sudden cognitive decline and the vacant behavior. That's attempted murder by chemical proxy, Arthur. That's what we need to prove." "I'm going back there," I said, standing up. "I'm going to record everything." "Be careful," Jessica warned. "Illinois is a 2-party consent state for audio recording, but there are exceptions for expecting privacy in a nursing home room. Just get what you can." That afternoon, I was back at Oakwood Haven. I had my phone in my pocket, voice memo app open, but when I got to room 312, it was empty. The bed was made with military precision. A nurse I didn't recognize was placing fresh towels on the rack. "Where's my mother?" I asked, panic spiking in my chest. "Oh, Mr. Vance," she smiled politely. "Your brother took her out for a drive. He said she needed some fresh air." My blood ran cold. "When?" "About an hour ago." I ran to the parking lot, scanning for Marcus's black BMW. Gone. I called him 5 times, straight to voicemail. For 3 agonizing hours, I paced the lobby, imagining the worst. Had he realized I knew? Was he finishing the job? Finally, the BMW pulled up. Marcus got out, looking annoyed, and hauled Mom out of the passenger seat. She looked exhausted, her feet shuffling on the icy pavement. "Marcus!" I shouted, storming towards them. He looked up, startled, then his face hardened into a mask of arrogance. "Arthur, what are you doing here?" "You said Mom died yesterday," I hissed, pointing at our living, breathing mother. Yet here she is. He had the audacity to laugh. A short, sharp bark of a laugh. "Oh, that. Yeah. Sorry about the confusion. I meant to call you back. False alarm. Mom had a bad episode yesterday. Looked like she was fading fast." I panicked. "You know how it is with dementia. Where did you take her today?" "Just for a drive. She likes the motion of the car." "Really? Because she looks like she can barely stand." "Back off, Arthur." His voice dropped, becoming a low growl. "I'm her power of attorney. I make the decisions about her care, not you. You want to challenge that? Get a lawyer." He brushed past me, half dragging Mom towards the entrance. Through the glass doors, I watched him settle her into her wheelchair, whispering something in her ear that made her flinch. Then he walked away without a backward glance. I was standing in the parking lot, snow melting on my coat, about to get into my car when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it, my nerves already frayed to the breaking point, but some instinct made me answer. "Hello?" Silence. Then a whisper. A woman's voice, faint and scratchy, like a radio signal from a distant planet. "Arthur." "Yes?" "Who is this?" "Arthur." "It's me." The voice was so quiet I had to press the phone hard against my ear to hear over the wind. "Who?" "It's your mother." I froze, my hand gripping the door handle. That couldn't be. Mom was upstairs in her room, lost in a fog of confusion. And this call was coming from. I checked the screen. A blocked number. "Arthur, listen carefully. I don't have much time. I need you to come to my room tonight. Late, after 10 p.m. Make sure Marcus isn't here. And Arthur, don't tell anyone about this call." The line went dead. I stared at my phone like it had transformed into an alien artifact. That was impossible. Mom couldn't string a sentence together, let alone make a clandestine phone call. And yet that voice, even whispered and strained, had sounded like her. The times real times her. The sharp, clear-minded woman I'd known my entire life. I waited in my car across the street until after 10 p.m., watching the nursing home lights dim. Marcus's BMW was long gone. The night shift was on, just a skeleton crew. I used the visitor code I'd memorized to slip through the side door and made my way silently to room 312. Mom was sitting up in bed, the lights low. When I entered, she turned to look at me. In the dim light, I saw her eyes, clear, focused, completely lucid. "Close the door," she said in a normal voice. Not the confused mumble I'd heard for months. A strong, commanding voice. I shut the door, my hands shaking. "Mom? What?" "Sit down, sweetheart. We need to talk. And we don't have much time." I sat, completely stunned. Are you okay? What is happening?" My mother, who I'd thought was lost to the darkness of dementia, smiled at me. Actually smiled, with that wry, knowing expression I remembered from childhood when she'd catch me and Marcus sneaking cookies before dinner. "I'm fine, Arthur. I've been fine this whole time. But the dementia, the diagnosis, you couldn't even recognize me because I was pretending." The room seemed to tilt. "Pretending?" She reached over and took my hand. Her grip was firm, steady, nothing like the weak, trembling hands I'd held for months. "Arthur, I'm 85 years old. I've been thinking a lot about mortality, about what happens when I'm gone, and I realized I needed to know something. I needed to know which of my sons would actually take care of me, not for my money, not for inheritance, but because they loved me. So, you fake dementia to test us?" When Marcus suggested becoming my power of attorney, I saw an opportunity. I agreed, but I also consulted my own lawyer, someone Marcus doesn't know about. I put most of my assets in an irrevocable trust weeks before Marcus got the POA. The accounts he has access to? I only left enough in them to see what he'd do. I couldn't process this. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Her eyes grew sad. Because I had to test both of you. I had to see who would visit me when I couldn't give them anything back. Who would hold my hand even when I didn't know their name. And Arthur. You came 3 times a week. You sat with me. You talked to me. Even when I acted like I had no idea who you were. Tears were running down my face now. Of course I came. You're my mother. I know that now. But Marcus. She shook her head, a look of profound disappointment crossing her face. Marcus failed. Arthur. Worse than I ever imagined. I've been documenting everything. Every time he came to pressure me to sign papers. Every time he got angry when I played confused. Every time he took something from this room thinking I wouldn't notice. I have it all recorded. The $450,000? He took it from the accounts I left accessible. I've been letting him dig his own grave. Mom, he told me you were dead, I whispered, the horror of it fresh again. He's planning a funeral for Friday. She nodded grimly. I know. He told me today during our drive. He said I was going to have an accident, that I'd pass away peacefully. He wanted me to agree to sign transfer papers for the remaining bonds first, but I refused, played confused. He's running out of time, and he knows it. This is insane. This is dangerous. We need to call the police right now. No, not yet, she said firmly. David Katz, your lawyer? He's been my lawyer too, for the past month. We have a plan, but I need you to trust me, Arthur. Can you do that? I squeezed her hand. Always. Over the next 2 days, we set the stage. David brought in the police, but quietly. They agreed to let Mom's plan play out, to catch Marcus in the act with irrefutable evidence. We installed hidden cameras in Mom's room, tiny, high-definition lenses disguised as buttons on her cardigan and sensors in the smoke detector. We coordinated with the nursing home staff. Only the head administrator and one trusted nurse knew the truth. And Mom continued her act, playing the confused, declining patient whenever Marcus was around. Marcus came twice more. Once to bring papers for Mom to sign, transfer documents for the deed to her house. Mom scribbled something illegible, acting like she didn't understand the pen. Marcus's frustration was visible, barely contained. Just sign clearly, Mom, he hissed through gritted teeth, forcing the pen into her hand. I'm trying to help you. The second time, Thursday night, he brought a syringe. I watched the video feed from a van parked down the street with 2 detectives, and it made me physically ill. He told Mom it was her vitamin booster, but we had the contents tested later from the vial he discarded in the trash. It was a massive dose of barbiturates, enough to stop the heart of an 85-year-old woman. Mom pretended to take it, but palmed the injection site, flinching away so the needle only grazed her skin, spilling the liquid onto the sheets. She groaned and slumped back, feigning unconsciousness. Tomorrow, Marcus whispered, smoothing her hair with a chilling tenderness. Tomorrow, you'll finally be at peace, Mom. No more suffering, and no more blocking my future. He stood over her for a moment, watching her chest rise and fall, then turned and left the room, pulling the door shut with a soft click. In the van, the lead detective turned to me. We have him for attempted murder. We could take him now. No, I said, my voice cold. Let him have his funeral. Let him think he's won. I want everyone to see who he really is. Friday morning arrived with a fresh layer of snow blanketing Chicago. Marcus had booked the prestigious Graceland Funeral Home. He'd sent out notices, called relatives. Cousins I hadn't seen in years called me offering condolences. I played along, my voice hollow. Yes, the funeral is at 2 p.m. Yes, it was very sudden. The funeral home was packed. Marcus had gone all out, lilies everywhere, a large, soft focus photo of Mom from 20 years ago at the front of the room. He'd even written an obituary full of flowery language about a beloved mother and rest after a long illness. I sat in the front row with Sophie, who'd flown in that morning. Marcus sat across the aisle with Linda and their kids. His face was composed, appropriately sorrowful. Linda kept touching his arm, comforting the grieving son. His children looked genuinely sad. They'd loved their grandmother. At exactly 2 p.m., Marcus stood up to give the eulogy. He walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and began to speak. We're here today to celebrate the life of Eleanor Vance, born February 14th, 1939, passed away January 7th, 2025. Mom was an incredible woman, a teacher who shaped young minds for 35 years, a mother who always put her children first. He paused, wiping a tear that didn't exist. And in her final months, she trusted me to care for her. She knew I would protect her interests, manage her affairs, and ensure she was comfortable. He looked out at the crowd, his voice gaining strength. Mom always loved me best. She told me so many times. She knew I was the responsible one, the one who would take care of everything. She wanted me to have her house, her cottage, everything she'd worked for because she trusted me to use it wisely to take care of the family. I stood up. Every head in the room turned. "That's interesting, Marcus," I said loudly, my voice cutting through the hushed room. "Want to tell everyone where Mom really is right now?" Confusion rippled through the pews. Marcus's face went white. "Arthur, sit down. This isn't the time. You're grieving. Where's the body, Marcus? Where's Mom's body?" "She's being cremated. We discussed this." "Really?" "Because I called the crematorium. They don't have her." Linda grabbed Marcus's arm. "Marcus, what is he talking about?" The double doors at the back of the chapel swung open with a heavy thud. Every person in the room turned, and there, framed in the doorway, was my mother. She walked in slowly using a walker, but her back was straight and her eyes were sharp. Behind her, 2 police officers in uniform followed. The room erupted. People stood up, gasping. Someone screamed. Marcus's daughter burst into tears. Mom made her way down the aisle, the sound of her walker rhythmic and terrifying in the silence. When she reached the podium, she stopped and looked up at Marcus. "Hello, son," she said clearly. "I'm not dead, but your inheritance is." Marcus's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "Mom, you're confused. You're sick. This is a mistake." "I'm not confused, Marcus. I've been recording everything for the past 8 months. Every threat, every theft, every time you tried to get me to sign documents transferring my assets to you. Every time you drugged me to keep me compliant." She turned to the assembled crowd. Many of them were crying, now some in relief, others in shock. "I'm sorry for deceiving all of you," Mom said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I had to know the truth. I had to see what my son would do when he thought I was helpless, and what I found broke my heart." One of the officers stepped forward, handcuffs glinting in the chapel lights. "Marcus Vance, you're under arrest for elder abuse, theft over $100,000, fraud, and attempted probate fraud. You have the right to remain silent." Marcus tried to run. He actually tried to push past the officer and bolt for the side door, but he only made it 3 steps before he was tackled. His kids were sobbing. Linda stood frozen, her face a mask of horror. As they led Marcus away, he shouted back at Mom, "I'm your son! You can't do this to me! I needed that money!" Mom watched him go, tears finally streaming down her face, but her voice was steady when she spoke the final word. "You were my son. But you stopped being my child the moment you decided my life was worth less than my bank account." The legal aftermath was a storm that lasted months, but we weathered it. Marcus initially tried to fight the charges, claiming Mom was actually incompetent and he was just a desperate son trying to manage her affairs. But the evidence was overwhelming. High-definition video footage of him trying to force her to sign documents, audio recordings of his chilling threats, bank records showing the theft of nearly $500,000. Dr. Hale's testimony after he was granted partial immunity about how Marcus had pressured him to prescribe unnecessary sedatives sealed the deal. In the end, Marcus pleaded guilty. He got 8 years in prison, was ordered to repay the $450,000 he'd stolen, plus substantial fines. He lost his real estate license permanently. Linda divorced him within 6 months and got full custody of the kids. They were devastated, of course, but Sophie and I stepped in. We tried to be the stable family they needed, showing them that not every adult in their life was a monster. Dr. Hale lost his medical license. The medical board doesn't take kindly to physicians who knowingly drug elderly patients for profit. As for Mom, she moved into a small, accessible condo near my apartment in the city. She was done with the big house, done with maintaining property that only attracted vultures. She wanted to be close to family, to Sophie when she visited, to me. We had dinner together twice a week, real dinners, with laughter and wine and no secrets. She started volunteering again, this time at an elder abuse prevention center, sharing her story to help others recognize the warning signs. We established the Eleanor Vance Elder Protection Fund with part of the money Marcus had returned. It provides legal assistance to seniors fighting financial abuse cases. One evening, about a year after everything happened, Mom and I sat on my back porch, wrapped in thick wool blankets, watching another Chicago snowfall bury the world in white. She held a mug of tea, the steam rising in the cold air. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked, breaking the silence. "The way you tested us?" She was quiet for a long time, watching the snowflakes dance in the porch light. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my own son could do what he did. But Arthur, I don't regret finding out the truth. I had to know who would love me when I had nothing to give. You gave me everything that mattered," I said. "You taught me integrity. You taught me that doing the right thing matters, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." She smiled, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "And that's why you passed the test. Not because you visited me, though that mattered, but because even when you thought I was gone, even when you thought you were getting nothing, you fought for what was right. You didn't let Marcus get away with it. You protected me even when I couldn't protect myself. That's what family does," I said. "Real family, yes," she corrected gently. "But blood doesn't make you family, Arthur. Love does. Choice does. Showing up does. Marcus was my blood, but he stopped being family the moment he decided I was just an asset to liquidate." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the snow pile up on the railing. Inside, I could hear my phone buzzing. Sophie, probably calling from Seattle for our weekly check-in. Or maybe Mom's lawyer with updates on the charitable fund. Life moving forward. Mom looked at me, her eyes still sharp and clear, defying the years. "You know what the saddest part is?" "What?" "If Marcus had just asked, if he'd just been honest about his financial problems, I would have helped him. Not with everything, not enabling his lifestyle, but I would have helped. Instead, he chose to steal. He chose to treat me like I was already dead. And that choice cost him everything. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just held her hand. This remarkable woman who taught me more about strength and dignity in the past year than in all the years before. She'd survived betrayal by her own son, orchestrated her own rescue, and came out the other side determined to help others. That's the thing about family, the real kind. It's not about blood. It's not about inheritance. It's about showing up. It's about loving someone even when they can't give you anything back. It's about fighting for what's right, even when it means standing against your own brother. Marcus made his choices. He chose greed over love. He chose theft over integrity. And he's paying the price not just in prison time, but in the loss of his children's respect, his wife, his career, and his mother's love. As for me, I got something far more valuable than any estate. I got more years with my mother, real years, where we could talk and laugh and heal. I got the knowledge that when tested, I did the right thing. And I got the chance to be part of something bigger, helping other families avoid what we went through. Blood doesn't excuse betrayal. True family protects the vulnerable. And sometimes the bravest thing an 85-year-old woman can do is pretend to be helpless just to find out who will help her when she can't help herself. That's what I learned from Eleanor Vance, my mother, my hero, the woman who taught me that dignity matters more than dollars, and that real love shows up even when there's nothing to gain.